Hello, my friends. There's Laura's laugh, I can tell.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, yay, there's Laura. I heard Sean say hello. Oh, hey, Juan. Juan, you sent me a message that I meant to respond to and I didn't. And yes, I would love to play with you. So we will make it happen, I promise. Okay. Hey, Thomas, Ellen, yay. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So let me just turn on my focus here so that we don't get a bunch of my email notifications. Happy Saturday, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. We're a little bit late in advertising this one, but look, we did it anyway. Mark says confessional, I may or may not still have Boehm #1 on my stand. So that's okay. You can always have Boehm #1 on your stand because it's my favorite one, to be honest. So Sean, you rocked #8. I just have to say, I practiced that one pretty hard and I still could not play it all the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was several days of effort went into that one.
Yeah. Ellen did great. Yeah, I like that one. It's a good one. So we don't have anybody who signed up to perform today, which is fine by me. We'll do a little this will just be a little bit of a different format than what we've done with the Flute World Collective classes in the past. First of all, Miller family. Hello, Miller family. What's your first name? Just a happy audience member today. That's wonderful. I love it. We're all kind of happy audience members, so that's great. And who is this that just joined who says iPad? What's your name?
This is Chris.
Chris. Hey, Chris. Awesome.
I am part of this group, but I have not really posted in this group.
Awesome.
Just because some of I guess in my mental mentality is I cannot post the whole thing, but my teacher is trying to get me out of that. It's like, you know what? You don't have to post the whole thing. Just post like a measure or a piece.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
Matthew is such a, I love him. He is such a great teacher.
Me too. Totally. Oh, Matthew's your teacher.
Matthew's my teacher.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, that's actually, thank you for saying that, Chris, because I think that's a really good starting place for us here. I would love to get into Boehm #9. Maybe we can do a little sneak peek of #10. I'm also doing a class on #10 tomorrow as well, but just talking about why it is that we're even in this group and why we practice etudes and why we post things at all. Right? Because I think there's a lot of different reasons, and it can be really intimidating and a little bit intense to, put yourself out there and be like, well, cool, here's the thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the past, in our flute society, our flute community, and a lot of classical music communities, honestly, there's been an expectation of near perfection all of the time. And it's this idea that if you don't have something worked up to a certain, level, then you're not worthy. Please go away. No one wants to hear you. Don't post anything. Good luck. Go practice.
Yes.
Go practice 8 hours a day. And also good luck paying your rent and taking care of your family and having a job. So
that's old toxic flute studio talk.
Right? How many of you have experienced that in your life?
Oh, yeah.
Can I raise 2 hands? Yeah. Right? So my mission in life is to change that idea, because I think it's so beautiful to have something that we care about, to express ourselves, to improve ourselves, to make music, and to connect with each other. Because really, that's the whole point. We all are flute nerds, so we should all be friends and try to help each other get better, right? So in that, hashtag flute nerds for life. Yeah, there's a little bit of a kind of a scarcity mindset when it comes to putting yourself out there, because we're always afraid of being judged. And in being judged, that means, oh, well, if someone hears me play when I'm not at my best, then they're never going to want to call me to play this gig, or how am I ever going to get this job? Or if they actually see who I really am and where I really am at, then, you know, this is how they're going to think of me. Because there's only, you know, how many orchestra positions in the world? Not enough for all of us.
And most of them don't pay.
And most of them you can't even afford to live off of anyways. So it's all a mess. It's all a mess. So I think we should just leave that mess behind and make our own more beautiful creative messes instead. Which is, don't play all the right notes. It's going to be okay. Yeah, Ellen, we're all humans making music. Get a MIDI file for perfection. Exactly. No soul, right? So now, all of that being said, I could be on a soapbox about that toxicity and changing those mindsets and showing up for yourself. Hey! Oh my God, you guys are the cutest ever. I don't even know.
She's coming with me to NFA, so you'll see her again.
We are gonna have a giant hug, all of you. So just watch out.
Well, I wanted to maybe I've never been at an NFA. I thought, oh, let me explore it. So first thing was, oh, you got to be a member. So there I went. I became a member. I live on Social Security, so I chose the low pay, whatever. Then let's see, register. Oh, register. Oh, now $200. Oh boy, now I'm already up to 300, and then hotel. I can drive there, food, stuff like that. It was like, yeah, not only the orchestras and playing flute doesn't pay, on top of that, even going to have fun costs a lot of money.
Yeah, it's
not to mention how much these babies cost.
I know. It's really, honestly, it's true. It really is. And I think that's part of the beauty of having these sorts of sessions that are more accessible. You know, COVID was so terrible for all of us for so many reasons, but one of the positive things that came out of it, I think, is more accessibility and opportunity to connect without having to spend, you know, $2,000 or whatever to go to a thing. Who knows what it is, but
yeah, disappointing, but what the hell?
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
Yep. And Flute World is doing it. They do all these free things. It's the best. There's also a lot of opportunity sometimes if you want to go to a convention one or anybody. You can volunteer for a lot of these flute companies. They help cover some of the costs. So that might be something to look into in the future if you ever want to try to go. We can talk about it another time. But anyway, so that being said, this sort of idea of coming to Etude of the Week, or even just coming to your practice, your personal practice when you show up and play the flute, I think it's so important. Wow. Flute World has 40 volunteers they're covering the costs for the convention this year.
That's a lot.
See, there you go. Yeah. So for future, it's a good thing to check into. But to come to your practice or post your etude or whatever, and know what your purpose is behind that, right? If you're going to post an etude and the whole reason you're posting it is to try to like look cool and show off for your friends, probably a lot of anxiety that goes on behind that. And there are many people that do that. I was like that when I was in my like early 20s. I was like, watch how fast I can play this, you know? But if the point instead is, I want to post this so that I can, there's many reasons, connect with other people, try to improve for yourself. That's a huge one, is just the self-improvement. Be more honest about where I'm coming from, or find a specific issue that you're working on. And usually those posts are so influential. I really think it's like a ripple effect, because when someone posts a video that is, this is where I am, this is what I'm working on, it's amazing how many more posts you'll see that week. Because it's like one person gives everyone else permission to like show up as themselves and not be perfect. It's the most beautiful thing ever. So Chris, there you go. So then the other side of that is talking about not having to post the whole etude and posting little sections. This is a fantastic thing to work on, because then it really helps you isolate an issue and actually work on that issue. I think one of the biggest problems in our practice is that when you're working on a piece of music or an etude, the discipline of just isolating a section is really hard, because we just want to keep playing through it. You know, it's like this, the music is connected, and it's like so many of my private students I have been kind of getting on this week because one of them's learning Mozart concerto, one of them's doing a Bach partita, you know. And I'm like, okay, we're only going to play these 4 measures. And every single time they go on, I'm like, okay, only these 4 measures, please. And it's like, it's so hard to stop sometimes. But in playing smaller sections, you get so much more out of it because you can actually isolate issues, right? So because of that, Chris, I'll post just 1 section this week too, okay? Then everyone else will feel better about it. Maybe, we'll see. So that being said, what do you say we take a look at number 9? We've got a couple more days of number 9. And we'll just take a look at 1 or 2 sections of it. How does that sound? Unless there's another one you guys want to look at. If there's another, any of them 1 through 9 that you want to take a look at, maybe a little bit of 10 we can do, just let me know. But let me pull them up here. By the way, I'm doing a bunch of workshops for over the rest of the month. I think there's 8 of them over the next couple of weeks. Some of them will be talking about these conversations about how do you show up for yourself, how do you stay motivated, what inspires you, why are we here. We're doing a couple. I'm doing one that's just scales. We'll play a bunch of scales stuff together. One that's an improvisation thing, and then a couple more of these study buddy sessions. So if you want to sign up for those, if you can't afford it, it's not a problem. Please just let me know. It's really fine. I just want people to be there. Otherwise, you can come to all or just a couple. If you sign up for all of them, you'll get recordings for everything too. So if you want to keep talking about these things, just let me know. All right, so share my screen. Boehm Caprices. Number 8. Ah! Terrible. I love it actually, but it kicked my butt. Okay. Hooray! Here we go. Number 9. So whenever we start learning an etude, I think it's really great to give it a little bit of analysis as to like, what's the point, right? Like why? What's something that we notice in this etude that might be a challenge? So what do you guys see right away? Or if you've already played this or worked on it, what are some of the biggest challenges for you? One's just like element, I don't know.
Everything.
Everything is hard. Yeah.
So I was looking at the at the part after that double bar at the bottom.
Here.
Mm,
Here.
Yeah, from there. And
Yep.
so on the next line where it makes those big jumps,
Yep.
I really struggle with getting the tone to be consistent between the octaves like that.
Yep.
You don't need both.
Yep. I think you nailed it, Laura. I think that is absolutely the hardest part of this. Yep.
Well, and I can say how I've tried it.
Please do. Yes. Awesome.
So it's like the skeleton of the melody reverses there. So instead of being the top note, it's the bottom note.
Yes.
And it's those 2 measures before the end of the page that
do
that.
Yep, exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. Do you all have your flutes, by the way? Does everybody have a flute nearby?
There's a flute nearby.
Sean's got one, some to choose from.
Yeah.
It's good. I'm going to stop sharing for just a second because I want to turn my original sound on here. So
The other thing, when I saw that section, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's De La Sonorite just shrunken down to 2 measures.
Yeah, exactly. See, you guys don't need me to teach this class. You all know. You all know what's happening. No, this is the point of community things, though, too. We all have such wonderful ideas come from different places. So yeah, let's take a look at this. And I would love to do this sort of outline of the skeleton together. And then let's take a look at the exercise in sonorite that Sean's talking about. because I think that is such a beautiful exercise to have sort of in our wheelhouse to add to your practice routine, because it's just, yeah, it applies to all of this sort of flexibility. There's a couple of them in the Moyse Grand Liaisons book too that are really good for this. So if you all want to play along, feel free. I'm going to just kind of give a little demonstration. So I'm going to skip by the first two measures, and we're just going to go to, this is the second and third measures on this last line. Okay. So I'm going to play through both of them just very slowly, and then we're going to do just the outline of the notes that we really want to give a little more emphasis to. And then we'll talk about how to get that the increased leaps going, okay? Ooh, we get all the way to our low C, right? So it's amazing how the intervals get wider and wider and wider, right? It's a shortened version of that sonorite exercise, right? So now we're just going to play through these two measures, and we're just going to play every other note. So all of the D flats in the first measure we'll leave out, and all of the C's in the second measure we'll leave out, okay? Feel free to play along if you'd like to. No pressure. You can. Yeah. The more you can do this, and the more musically you can play this, and the more connected they can be, the easier it's going to be to make those intervals come out later, right? So maybe mess around with it a little more. I think it's very important to keep a very open embouchure or inside of your mouth, very open jaw. When I say open jaw, though, there's a difference between, there's like a point where your jaw opens and it's too far, right? Versus just a very oh sound inside of your mouth. It's important to keep that resonance moving, as well as your airstream going the whole time, right? So make sure everything feels connected. Let's do it again. Yeah. Is anybody having any trouble with any of that? With getting any of those notes out, or having it sound or feel good? If you are, please let me know, and I'd be happy to hear you and give you a little help. Everybody's okay? Cool. Those low C's sometimes, I just like being like, yeah. Come on. So, okay, now let's take a look at adding in the D flats. Let's just do the D flat measure first, okay? So here's a fun way to do it too, is by changing the rhythm and making the melody notes a little bit longer, so they still kind of maintain their importance, I guess. So practice it like this. Yeah, that's good. Same with the next measure. I think it's really good to try to keep, there is flexibility that has to happen. Your lips have to move, right? But I think it's important to make sure your lips are moving as minimally as possible. Like, it's not a dramatic, right? We're not going like this. So the emphasis needs to be on the lower notes. So in general, you want your embouchure to be prepared for the low notes that are coming out, and then it's just a little jump for the D flat or the C, right? It's not a ton. Moving, but it's not like, yeah, Laura, go for it.
I'm just wondering if there's some kind of harmonics exercise that would help with that.
Yes, absolutely. How many of you are familiar with practicing harmonics? Or who's not familiar with it? It's okay if you're not. Cool. So this is another really great way to, number one, maintain your airstream, make sure things are moving as quickly as they need to be, and make sure that your embouchure gets put in the right position. Because with harmonics, you have a lot of options for notes that can come out. So you have to make sure that you have the right airstream and direction for it to work. So for a D flat harmonic, if you play a low D flat, so all the fingers down, and this is a challenging thing, but I think it's really helpful. So if we use the D flat harmonic for all of those high D flats instead, it'll be more like this. Right? First, can we try this? Everybody find your D flat harmonic. This one. Right? If you can't find it, let me know and I'll help you. I'm trying to see everybody here because I got my screen share on, so it's harder. Okay, I think we're all fine. Good. So then you can kind of separate each one. Oh, see that one? I didn't have enough air support to get the D flat from B flat to D flat, so it didn't work. It's because I'm leaning over trying to show you my fingers. It doesn't help.
Casey,
What?
are you lifting the first finger of the left hand when you're doing the harmonic?
No.
You have the first finger down.
Yes.
Oh, I can hardly get it like that, but I get it easily when I lift the left finger.
Play it for me. Let me hear.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. That's with you lifting the first finger, Juan?
No, now I'm keeping it down.
Okay, cool. So with the first finger down,
Yeah, it gets too sharp if I lift it.
exactly. Yep. Have any of you ever experimented with playing another woodwind instrument like saxophone or clarinet or anything like that? They all have an octave key, right? So when you want to go up an octave, you hit the octave key and it opens up something at the top of the tube. So with the first finger lifted, it's giving you less resistance to get that high note out, which kind of defeats the purpose of the exercise in a little bit, you know. What we're trying to do is add resistance to it, so it is more challenging to get out. That way, when you go back to the normal, you know, it pops out a little easier because you've made sure your air support is doing what it needs to do. So then for the next measure, with the C's, same thing. We do the low C harmonic. Oh, this one's harder, huh? Where is it? I think something that's wonderful about practicing these harmonics is you really have to make sure, again, your airspeed is moving, and that your embouchure is in the right place, and that there's space inside, or it's not going to work. Great.
Hard to practice.
It is hard to practice, yeah, because it sounds bad. It always is hard to practice the things that maybe don't make us sound so pretty. But I promise you it'll help, right? So first step is just play the lower notes, that descending line by itself. Next is maybe isolate a couple of those intervals that are a challenge. Especially, you know, when we're going from a low C to the other C, the higher C. You know, we want to make sure if you're closing up inside of your throat or your mouth, if you've got a lot of tension going on there, it's going to make it really hard for that lower C to come out. So it's important to stay really open for the higher notes too, right? Otherwise, we have way too much work to do to get all the other ones. Does anyone else have any thoughts or suggestions about these couple of measures before we take a look at noise? No? So if we were to do this as a Etude of the Week isolated post, right? I would maybe start from right here, this double bar, and then find a place that it sort of makes sense to stop. There's no pressure. Yep. Really? Okay. You could stop right there. That's enough. You know?
That's a good spot because the next two bars are kind of their own problem. So.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at the next couple of bars. They are their own problem. We got some weird arpeggios here. My solution to this is just play it slow. Play it slow, get it in your ear, know what it sounds like, especially when it's not so familiar or comfortable, right? Ooh, that one's kind of cool. Oh, except it's E flat. Oh, I liked it when it was the E natural. It was wrong. D flat too. There, all right. It's not as cool as I thought it was. But this is a really interesting sequence, right? Moving up chromatically. I think it's really interesting in these etudes because usually the format is there's a theme at the beginning. It's pretty long. Then there's a transitional section that's super weird and kind of hard to figure out. Then it comes back to the beginning section again with maybe a couple of little changes. So another really did someone say saying something? I don't know. Another really good way to go about this is start from the middle. Like find the part where everything is starting to change and you see a lot of accidentals popping in and start practicing there. Because by the time you get to the end, it's going to be a lot of the same as the beginning. Another problem I know I have personally is that if you always start learning something from the beginning every single time, you never actually get to the end and the end is really uncomfortable. And same with the middle. Like, you know, it's just, we end up doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I think in your practice session, if you can either start from the end and work your way backwards, or find a place in the middle to start right away before you even start from the beginning, it can be really helpful in making sure that your practice is more efficient. You know? Cool.
I usually like to start at the end on these because by then you've basically learned the beginning and then you can spend your
Exactly.
time on the middle.
Yeah, exactly. Now, when we start from the end, what I usually like to do is just, whether you work with a metronome or not, I think a metronome is a good way to kind of keep yourself accountable. A lot of times I will just use the metronome as a reference, and then I'll turn it off when I'm actually playing it, unless my intention is to make sure my notes are even, right? If you show up and you're like, my fingers are uneven, I'm trying to work on that, play with a metronome. If you're thinking, I really want to get this faster, but I'm struggling with that, the metronome is a very useful tool. Sometimes I think the metronome can actually like hinder us from learning something if it's not used in the right way. So it's all about what you're doing and why. I'll come back to that always, okay? But I would start maybe here from like, you know, the
I'm
last...
glad you scrolled to this section because in the bar before the finale, I'm pretty certain that second D natural is a misprint.
Oh. Oh, yep. You're right, Sean. There's no way that's supposed to be D natural.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
If it was a D natural, there wouldn't be a reason to print the accidental. You just printed the wrong one.
That's correct, yep. Yep. So everybody, that measure, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 before the end, the measure before the finale. The D flat or D natural on beat 3 should be a D flat. Yay, Sean. You get a gold star. Cool. So when you're looking at learning something and starting from the end, I am not the kind of person who thinks that there is one right way or there are any wrong ways to learn anything. So depending on who you are and how you learn and what inspires you and what motivates you and why you're practicing this, there are different ways of going about it. One potential way is to start, I usually give it 4 measures max, like 2 measures at a time. I will play through it without a metronome first if I've never played it before, just so that I can kind of give my brain as much time as it needs to make sure that I'm getting all the right notes and the right rhythms-ish, right? So I would maybe start the 3rd measure from the end because these last 3 notes, it's fine. A flat's cool. And just kind of great. So second to last measure, A flat major scale. If you practice your scales, this will be easy for you. If you don't practice your scales, this is a good opportunity to practice your A flat major scale. So it's positive in all the ways, right? And this other measure is a little bit trickier because we got some chromaticism in there. Oops. Right? Cool. So then I would kind of go through that way, do some different rhythms and try to make sure I'm getting all the notes right. Then I will turn on the metronome to a tempo that feels like I have it under control. Right? So if it's not under control, make it go slower. If it does feel under control, make it go faster. I have this recent theory, and please feel free to argue with me and tell me if you think I'm totally crazy, but sometimes I think that a part of our problems with not being able to play things fast is that we're so obsessed with playing it perfectly with a metronome that we don't actually challenge ourselves, like push the metronome faster. Because as soon as it starts to feel scary, it's like, oh no, I can't do this. You know, so I think that there's a metronome marking for everything that you'll play that's on the line between being challenging and also feeling like you still kind of have it under control, right? And I think oftentimes we play it way too safe and it takes us, years to get things moving faster. Um, I don't know. That's just something I've kind of, oh, cool. Yeah. Flute Scale book by Patricia George that has practice rhythm patterns written out. Yes. Cool. Practice rhythms are like a literal magic wand, I think, because it seems so silly sometimes to play these practice rhythms. Sorry, I'm drinking sparkle water. They make me burp. But it's like the way that it combs things out in your brain. It's incredible. Yeah, Ellen.
I like your observations about the metronome because I think there's the metronome can be a two-edged sword.
Yeah.
Obviously it's a resource and what a resource for good or evil.
Yeah, exactly.
But for good, I really like moving it up when I start a metronome. I like identifying what tempo I can play it at smoothly.
Yes.
And then depending on where I think I want to end up or how hard it is, I move it up 3 clicks or 5 clicks or until the end of that day when it got just a little beyond my capability. And
Yeah.
I put it away and work on some of the harder passages. And then the next day I come back in and start back at a tempo that was successful, but not, and it's just really encouraging to go through that process iteratively several days
Yes.
in a row. And then, but I also think that the metronome, I find for me anyway, it locks me into, I start getting so obsessed with the metronome that I lose the musicality and realize that I can keep the same 8 beats. I can still land on, if I set it for 8 instead of 4 or 16, if my metronome would do that, I can still land at the right place with some artistry put into it.
Yes.
So I think we have to recognize too when to let go of it or when to let it let go of you.
Ooh, I like that version.
I get owned by the metronome sometimes.
Exactly. We are not slaves to the metronome, right? But I think I love that, Ellen, because it is a tool for good or evil. But it depends on if it really is always comes down to intention for me. Like, if the goal is that you're trying to play evenly and get things going faster, the metronome is the best tool for that. And I completely agree with you that to be able to actually see a number that you have progressed from and to is so good. And it's so encouraging. If you have a practice journal and you write down, I played, from the finale to the end, this day, here's the tempo, cross it off. Here's usually in my Taffanel and Gobert book, which is falling apart and it's somewhere around here, on each of the exercises, I would write on the margin on the left, like today I played it at 60. Then I'd cross it off, 64, cross it off, 68, cross it off, and go back. But the thing that's tough about that is I actually do agree with you that let's say you progress from 60 to 92 in a day, whatever. Then the next day you come back and play it at 80, right? Or 78 or whatever. I think it's very good to do this kind of this situation instead of just try to go straight up with the numbers. Because it really helps to just solidify what you've done. It keeps things, that repetition is always amazing. Another warning about metronome practice is that it has to be in no more than 4 measures at a time. Otherwise, I think it's not useful. Because the point of practicing with a metronome and getting it faster is to get that repetition going on. And if you're repeating something that's way too long, I think it can be more destructive than helpful sometimes. So you got to have the discipline of doing maybe just like 2 or 3 or 4 measures at a time. I think 2 measures is fantastic. So then let's say you do these 2 measures, then you just add 1 at a time, and then you can kind of choose, okay, actually this measure I can leave out. So maybe I would do, let's do a little example. Let's turn on my metronome and we'll do, I'm going to turn it to 80. Just see how it feels. I'll do the last couple of measures. Nope. Oh, what am I missing? Okay. Good. So I played it wrong a couple of times. So in my practice, I would make sure I can play this correctly with this metronome at this tempo, like at least 3 times in a row. Oftentimes we practice it incorrectly more than we practice it right, because you get it wrong. You get it right once and you're like, cool, got it, moving on. That's not how it works. So we do it again. I noticed I was missing the E natural in the second group of 4. That's what I was doing before. So then I might add in some practice rhythms if I want to. Cool, I got the A major scale, A flat major scale, so that's fine. Then I maybe have a goal, like I'm gonna get it up to 90 something, 100, I don't know, whatever. Get those measures up to that. Now I'm gonna add 1 measure back. And then we start there. And then you can include the next measure if you want to or not, and just keep moving backwards that way until you get to this little interval part that's probably gonna be harder. This one's actually easier than the ones we went over before though, but still. Now we gotta go up and have our embouchure set for this low E flat. So that's interesting. It's kind of opposite of what we did before. Then maybe you take a little bit of time and work on these measures before you add them back in to this metronome practice, right? So it all just kind of depends on what works for you. The other thing I liked about what Ellen said is if you are practicing with a metronome and you put it on like half the tempo that you're trying to get to, so let's say I just put that one at 40 instead of 80, it's actually really fascinating to help you maintain an internal rhythm, because you'll see you're actually hearing the metronome every other beat instead of every beat. So that is a very kind of wonderful and also extremely frustrating way sometimes to practice. But so like now, oh, we'll see if I can do it from like the finale. Right? So there are times when I got a little ahead and times when I got a little behind, but it also allowed me a little bit of time and space to breathe, because you can flow a little bit differently instead of feeling like you have to be so strict. It helps you feel a little less panicked when you have to take a breath, I think. I don't know. Just suggestions. Cool. So let's see. We have a bunch of things in the chat I have not been reading. Hold on. Bar before the finale. Yes. 6 minutes. Yep.
We got sidetracked and didn't make it to the Moïse.
I know, that's true. Well, we have time. We still have time. I find that using the B flat with the first finger right hand is easier in some sections of this etude. Ah, yes, Chris. Cool.
I suspect that this was written for a flute that did not have a thumb B flat, right? Because Boehm didn't invent that, Berchialdi did. So since this was really a training manual for Boehm's flute, it's probably written, without that key in mind.
Sean, you are just getting all the gold stars today. I didn't know that. So that's really cool. Yes, so about the B flat, we could have a whole nother super tangent conversation about this. I just do whatever's easiest. I use B flat thumb most of the time. If you have things where you have to play B natural and B flat, sometimes I just use my thumb to do it because it's more comfortable for me.
Switching at those 2 arpeggios at the top of the second page.
Yeah. Let me go back to it. Hold on.
Well, I use the what I was talking about, the B flat with the first finger.
Yeah.
I find that a measure like 13 and 14 works best for me.
3, 6, 9.
On the first page.
Oh, here. Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if it helps you get down to the E flat because you have less fingers you have to put down for the low E flat, that makes sense. Totally.
Yeah, it works great there because your finger's already down for the E
Yeah.
flat. So
The only one it gets a little bit tricky for is the when you get to the C and the D flat. But I mean, that's fine. Oh, ooh, middle E flat to low E flat is a hard one for me. Yeah, Chris, I like that. I think that works really well there. But this is the fun part, is you kind of to have options and have choices. That's why I'm not the right person to ask if you want me to tell you always play the correct fingerings for things, because I just think that that's not true. You know, we have so much stuff to worry about. I've said this before, but there's way too many other things that we need to be thinking about than whether, you know, it's wrong for you to use the first finger or the B flat thumb. Just do whatever works. I mostly use the thumb because, again, just is what's more comfortable for me. Sometimes the lever is awesome. Like when you're playing Prokofiev. Good one. Whatever. Other examples of that exist as well, but yeah, it's fun to experiment. Okay, let's take a look very quickly. How many of you know, besides Sean, because he definitely knows, which Moise exercise I'm about to show you that has to do with intervals? No? Yay! Okay, I love it when you don't. Ellen knows, yeah. Laura probably knows too, but you know what? It's cool. It is never a bad thing to look at this exercise. So for those of you who don't know or are not familiar with, and I have said this every week, that I'm going to do one class that is just on sonorite, which I may just do instead of scales. We'll see. But anyway, I think this book is just so wonderful and amazing, but is also really kind of like, if you don't practice it with intention or you don't know what you're doing, it's like, this is the most boring thing ever and I never want to do it. I don't understand why this is important.
yeah, but, the most important part of this exercise book is the text.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, look at this. It's crazy. So this exercise, like this first exercise, when I went to the Galway Flute Festival for many, many years, we did this every single day. Every morning we did this together. And it was one of the most beneficial things I've ever done. Because it seems boring at first, but then when you actually stop and really listen to what's going on, it's like, oh, I get it. I understand why this is. Okay, but we'll
It's the call of the tribe.
Mm-hmm. This one also is unbelievably helpful. Okay, but we're not diving down that deep of a rabbit hole, okay? Just a little rabbit hole. All right, so this is the one we're talking about. So this exercise is meant to help to really understand flexibility of your embouchure and how to widen intervals slowly. So you're not just making these huge leaps without, you know, being able to prepare for them. So there's a lot of ways to practice this. My teacher, Christina Jennings, has a really wonderful exercise she calls the roller coaster exercise that she does that's based off of this that is really great. But so we'll talk about the tonguing one versus the slurring one in a second. But if we keep going, these are the notes that we use. Okay. So I actually really like doing it with this détaché sort of thing here. But only using a ha articulation. I've been talking about this way too much recently. I don't know why it's all in my brain. But what it does is it really helps make sure your airstream is moving at the speed it needs to and that your embouchure is placed in the right place. So if you have your flutes, mute yourself, feel free to play along, but I'm just going to kind of give you an example of this. Oh, my back hurts. I don't know what's going on. Okay. So we would go. First of all, before you start, just find a beautiful F. We're going to start on F. You don't always have to start this exercise on F, by the way. It's the same pattern. You can do it on whatever note. but we're starting on F. Just find a good F. One that's open and pretty. Good. Now we're going to try it this way. Right? And so on and so forth. Actually, we could do this whole exercise and it would be really good. The reason I like doing it with this ha is that you have to be very intentional about where your embouchure is placed for every note. And if you find one that is kind of cracking and you're not getting out, you adjust and just kind of repeat that until you find it, right? But it really helps with accuracy. Then when you go back and apply it to an etude, like the Boehm, you are already aware of where your embouchure needs to be for each kind of range and note. The other way to do it is like this. So we're slurring to each note instead. And I actually like that he kind of decrescendos into the slur because oftentimes, especially when the intervals get wider, we tend to do things like this. Right? Instead of, oops. Oh, I just had my flute overhauled and I'm using it as an excuse because everything is harder. But to be more gentle with it instead of just using the momentum or the dynamic to get the note out, you know?
Yeah, and finding the minimum amount of motion to get from the right placement for the first note to the right placement for the second note, right?
Yes.
Economy of motion there.
Precise.
Or what he will refer to in the text as suppleness.
Suppleness. Oh, yeah, it's very sweet. Yeah, cool. You do these 3 times with different attacks, poo, ha, and a light tongue. Nice, Ellen. That's great. Christina's was like this. We would go. So it's like a little longer, and then. Right? But I really I am an advocate for doing it with just the ha's, because I really think it helps you with exactly what Sean was saying, which was trying to do minimum amount of motion. If you're really doing good, don't breathe in between every single note, right? So instead of going, right, try to keep your embouchure in the same place. It's harder. And you'll probably
Oh,
notice.
wait, does that variation do where he slurs the first interval and then repeats the second note?
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. So like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mark, exactly. Who, just no tongue. Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah, I think it's so helpful because I think one of the biggest problems for us is that we underestimate the amount of air support and speed that we need all of the time. And I think with the ha or the who, with attacking with your support in the first place, it's a reminder of we're not using our tongue to get the air moving. You're actually using your support to get the air moving, right? Yeah, Mark says it absolutely changed his playing. Realized my lips were working too hard. Yes, totally. I was such, all through my undergrad, I used my embouchure for everything. Like it was always too tight. I always had my head down like this. My head joint was always rolled in too far. All of the things that you do to kind of like, it's a sort of cheating way to get everything out and avoid using your actual air, you know? So this Moise exercise, and if any of you don't have it, I think it's on IMSLP. Just let me know. Also, Flute World sells this book. I guarantee you. So if you go to Flute World and check that out, I don't think it's that expensive. I can't imagine that it is, and I'm sure it's on IMSLP. But it's let me just put it in here. What
It's
it
well
is.
worth having in your library. I
It
don't
is.
think it's left my stand in decades.
Yep. Oh, cool. Mark's going to put the link and you get 15% off. So look at that, everybody. Perfect. But that, honestly, that exercise will change your life with this kind of thing. And then when you come in and approach things like these intervals in Boehm, it's like, oh, okay, I know how to do this, you know? Another great one to use the Haas on is Tafnel and Gobert number 4. If you're working on, this is great for helping with articulation. So this is another one that is just like the flute, you know, Bible, I guess. Moise and Tafnel. And you can do this on anything. It doesn't have to be these exercises. These are just very, you know, where did it go? Oh my gosh. Okay. Here we go. This one. Da, 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 da. We're gonna skip these and go to number 4.
These exercises are great, but at some point everyone should, go read the entire method. It's really interesting.
Oh yeah, I have. Yes, it is amazing, but I haven't even done that. It's a lot, but yes, totally. So if you do the same thing, the Haas. You'll be tired. Never do more than one key in a sitting, or you'll never want to play the flute again and you'll hate me forever. So don't do that.
I don't do more than one key in a week.
Yeah, seriously.
I stick to one key signature for pretty much all of the 17 wherever applicable. And
Yeah.
I'll just stay in that key for a week.
Totally. Oh, look, he put T and G in there too.
Oh, cool.
So here's the moral of the story today, everyone. Isolation is so important, right? Whether it comes to playing these exercises, Tafnel and Gobert or Moise or whatever, in one key signature or one part of it at a time, or you're practicing one little section of an etude in a week. The goal of Etude of the Week is not necessarily to learn a whole etude in a week, if that's not what you want, right? The goal is to find the thing that you need to improve and take the time to really focus on that thing when you're practicing. So smaller sections, always with an intention, right? And if you don't know what your intention is, play through it a couple of times and I guarantee you'll find something you didn't like about it and make that your intention. Like it's, it's okay. You don't have to show up. People think I'm organized. I'm not that organized. Laura's organized. I'm not. So, I always tell people, have a practice journal, write down your intentions the day before, then you show up the next day and you have I've done that maybe once in my life, right? So like most of the time I'm very spontaneous and I'll show up to a practice session. I'll be like, I don't really know what I want to work on today. Gonna play through this etude. Oh, very clear that I need to work on my breathing today. Awesome. That now I have my intention. Then I isolate.
My practice journal is a phone full of outtakes.
Yeah, perfect. Also fantastic. That's so good. But yeah, I think, ultimately we do this because we like it. And so the goal here is to try to make a lot of the problems that are, on the flute, that we have on the flute, whether it's breathing or tone or articulation or whatever, not so challenging so that we actually are able to be free to express ourselves. That's the goal, is freedom of expression. So, one thing at a time. And then do the thing that you're good at so that you feel good and that you have fun. I just go and like play through Annie's song or Danny Boy or something, and it always makes me feel good. Or improvise with some Stevie Wonder. It's my favorite. Stevie Wonder's hard to improvise with, though. Let me tell you, he's always changing keys all over the place. Maybe the Beatles better. I don't know. Juan's like, yeah, it's true. Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift's in Denver right now, so our whole city is like freaking out.
I could care less.
Yeah, right. All right, everybody. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Katie.
If you have any questions or comments or want to keep this conversation going, feel free to email me. I'm going to send you my email. I use different emails all the time, but I've been doing this one more. And if you have questions about the workshops that are coming up over the rest of the month, let me know. I'm really excited about them. It's going to be really fun. So would love to see you there. And Flute World, thank you again for doing this. You are the best. And I hope to see you all. If you're going to be at NFA, please let me know. There is going to be an Etude of the Week showcase there so that we can actually like see each other in person, which would be so cool. Juan, you live in my state, so we can hang out in person without you paying a bunch of money for a flight. It's okay. What do you say, Sean?
I said, looking forward to seeing everyone at NFA. It's going to be a blast.
Me too. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. If you didn't get those links to those to the music and the discount code, also let me know and I'll email it to you. Okay?
Thank you. You have a great time.